Alright, here's everything nice and clean and inspected and ready to go back together. This might be seem a little daunting. I might have to pull some things off of the table here and there. And I apologize for all of the editing that I've done so far. I've been filling in uhs and things like that. I like doing the slide first because it's real quick and easy. It's the last thing you usually take apart, so let's put it back together. We're going to be dealing with the slide, firing pin spring, ejector, and our firing pin block. Put a nice light coat of CLP on everything because this is going to go back into long-term storage. I'm going to take our extractor and I'm going to put it in just like this. I'm going to line our channels up. We need to watch our firing pin block. That's going to prevent us from putting this in there all the way. So I'm going to depress that, push that down, and line up our channel here. Next thing I'm going to do, make sure our firing pin spring are assembled, just like that. I'm going to insert it through the firing pin hole, depress our firing pin block. Notice how the firing pin block holds that in there. Next thing, a small punch. I'm actually going to push in on our firing pin. While I'm doing that, I'm going to slide the firing pin block over top of it through that channel to retain it. If you watch, the firing pin will come right out the back of that block, just like that. Going to insert our barrel, get the linkage up, put in our full-length guide rod, and our slide is pretty much back together, ready for reassembly from field strip. Now let's tackle this frame. Let's do the first thing we took out, or the last thing we took out, was our trigger. With your trigger, make sure that the longer part is on the bottom here. Insert it right into the trigger channel, just like that. I did put a little grease at the top and bottom and a little bit on the sides. Like I said, I'm not worried too much about unburnt powder and dirt gathering on and stuff. To hold our trigger in, we've got our mag release. I called this the safety on the disassembly. So take our mag release, insert it through the larger end, and either that's going to go all the way down, or should go all the way down, as long as it's lined up properly. Just like that. Push it in a quarter of the way, just like disassembly, and I'm going to turn it the opposite way that I turned it to lock it. So I'm going to turn it this way, and it should click right in. Do an ops check of our mag release. It's got spring tension, and the trigger still functions just fine. Alright, these are the next items we're going to be dealing with. Our sear, our firing pin block, and this plunger here, which I can't remember the name of it. The layout's going to go, this is going to go our frame first, on the right hand side of our frame. Our firing pin block is going to be oriented just like this, and our sear is going to be oriented right on top of it like that. I'm going to try to do this on camera for you guys. Notice my plunger is in there. This is my plunger right here, just like that. And then how we oriented our sear and our firing pin block like this, they're going to go right beside it. It helps if your parts aren't magnetized either, which mine are. You can see the orientation of it in there. I'm going to slide this punch in. Just try to line up my holes in preparation for the actual pin, just like that. Take our pin. It's the only pin that fits in the left hand side. Tapered side is going to be sticking out, and I'm just going to follow my punch in there, kind of giving it a little shake along the way just to line everything up. There it goes. Nice and easy. There's our orientation just like that. And I didn't do it right. My sear came out, so I got to do this again. Wiggling it through, lining up all of our parts. Push the pin all the way in like that. Notice the firing pin disconnect setting on the actual trigger. The sear is captured in there. It's curled out towards us. And my plunger here for my slide is actually stabbed as well. So that's not too bad. So here's the next parts I'm going to deal with. The hammer strut, the safety, the grip safety, and the pin for the hammer and hammer strut. First thing, hammer's going to go in this top hole, if you remember taking it out. Hammer is going to be in the cock position. Going to take our pin, line it up. The rounded side goes down, taper side goes out. Kind of feed it in there like that. I've inserted this spring with the 2 detents in it now. It just helps me to put everything back together. Next thing we're going to put in is our sear spring. Our sear spring, if you remember, fits into the pistol just like this. Just one thing to remember with this is, all it's held in right now by is this little notch down here. It likes to pop out at times, so just keep checking that through the next few steps here. So what I'm going to do is put the grip safety on. Insert it in here just like this. Okay, it's going to be some spring tension. Notice our spring came out. I'm going to fix that. If you look down through this hole, you can see there's a lot of stuff blocking our way. If we cock our hammer, just like that, notice how that opened up. So that's going to help us put our safety in. Safety is going to go in through this hole. Right back here, retaining our grip safety. And we're just going to rock it back and forth in here to get it lined up. It might take some squeezing. Another nice thing to do is to grab, you could use a knife blade. This blade works fine. I'm just going to push in on our detent to push the safety right up past it. Sometimes you have to jiggle your safety back and forth to get it to line up. Notice how my sear spring is setting on top of my sear on the left hand side, and then the middle spring is positioned above the trigger reset, and the right spring is for our grip safety. Flip our strut down just like that. We're going to push down on our grip safety, making sure it's lined up, that it and our strut are aligned. Notice how my spring popped out, my sear spring. It's not a big deal. Just going to line it back up. You look down inside of there, you have a nice open assembly. If your sear is sticking halfway in there, that means your spring is not setting on it, and you'll never get your safety in. We have our safety functioning. If you notice, my grip safety is not. What happened is my spring came out here. It should engage, which it's not, so I'm going to have to take this back apart. And keeping pressure on our sear spring because it likes to pop out. If that hole is clogged by your sear, then you're never going to get your safety in. Another thing I'm watching is to make sure that my sear spring does not pop out. I'm going to press that detent and push down on our safety as well at the same time. Just like that. So now our safety disengages and re-engages. I'm going to make sure that our sear spring stays right in that little channel by keeping pressure on it. We've got our mainspring housing and our mainspring housing pin. While I'm holding this down, I'm going to slide our mainspring housing up, making sure that our strut goes into the cup. And this is where it gets to be a little bit hard to do because you have a spring inside of here, your mainspring. I actually put my safety off, pull my trigger, lower my hammer down, and I'm pushing up on our mainspring. This portion here is kind of tricky because you have to compress that spring in there with that strut. So I'm going to do this off camera. I'm going to compress it, and then I'm going to feed our pin in from left to right. Round the side goes through first. I like to compress that spring with the strut, insert my pin, and tap on it with a mallet. I'm just using a rubber mallet here, just like that. It's kind of a pain to get in there, but that's it. So now that we're this far, I'm going to do an ops check of this. After getting my mainspring housing in there with the mainspring pin, first I'm going to make sure I have spring tension on my hammer, which I do. I should have a half cocked. That engages, that's our sear engaging our hammer. I should have a full cocked. At full cocked position, I should have a safety. And then I'm going to make sure my hammer doesn't fall in case I did something wrong. Keeping a finger on the hammer, I'm going to pull the trigger to see if it drops. It doesn't. I'm going to take the safety off. I'm going to do the same thing. My hammer should drop with the trigger pull, which it does. I'm going to pull it to half cock, and I'm going to push forward on it, making sure it does not fall. Go to full cocked, push on it, make sure it does not fall. Hold my grip safety, do the same thing. My safety is still off, by the way, so it shouldn't fall. So we have positive sear engagement with the hammer itself, and our safety is working. In this portion, it's basically just a field strip. In order to save some time, I'm going to skip putting the grips back on. I'm just going to reassemble this real quick for you guys. First thing I'm going to do, slide our slide back onto our frame. Make sure our guide rod is sitting in there straight, just like that. Make sure our linkage is straight in the hole so we can catch it with our slide lock. One thing to note with these, a lot of times guys like to push on them and roll them forward, and then you get real boogered up spot right here, blemish. A good thing to do with them, they are tapered. It's just to start with it on the detent and slowly push it in on there. And normally it will line up. Push our slide lock the rest of the way in. Pull it forward. We're going to take our barrel bushing. We're going to slide it on here. Make sure our keyway is lined up. Push it on. Rotate it to the left so that we can insert our spring over top of our guide rod, and then we can insert our plunger. I'm going to have to do this off camera so I can push down on it. So I'm going to keep turning our bushing. We have engagement of our plunger. At this point we should have a fully assembled pistol. Let me lower my hammer here, just like that. Let's do an ops check. Let's charge it. Okay, we charged it. Safety engages. I depress my grip safety and pull the trigger. The hammer does not fall. We've got positive sear engagement, and we have our safety engagement. Remove the safety. Push up on our hammer without pressing anything. Hammer does not disengage. Pull our grip safety. Push up on our hammer. Our sear is still engaged. Go ahead and pull our trigger. We should have the hammer drop as normal operation, and we do. Charge it again. Normal operation there. Safety. Do it again. Nothing happened when we safety engaged and trigger pulled. Pull the trigger again. We're good. Take an empty magazine, insert it into the pistol. We'll press the magazine release, and we have our magazine come out just fine. Charge our pistol. We have an empty magazine, so our slide, stop, engaged, opened up. Still have nothing in the chamber. Gonna close our slide. We got normal operation. Safety engaged. Safety disengaged. Pull our trigger. We have no binding. Everything's back together the way it should be. But everything else is working on this pistol good. Sorry for all the cutting and everything like that. It was kind of a hassle, but it's well worth it. This is once a year maintenance. Change out your springs, check your magazines, all that good stuff. Keep your pistols running good, and make sure you lubricate and clean them regularly. If you guys enjoyed it,